David Chen had always believed in order. In chemistry, order was everything. Elements combined according to strict, predictable rules, creating harmony from chaos. He had taught this harmony at Northwood High for 15 years. He was a good teacher. Strict, but fair. His students earned high scores, and parents respected him. He had a wife he loved, a teenage daughter he was proud of, and a house in a quiet suburb. His life was a well-balanced equation. That evening, he was driving his daughter, Maya, and her best friend, Chloe, home from a school play rehearsal. Quiet music played in the car, and the girls giggled in the back seat, discussing their classmates. David watched the road, smiling slightly. These were the simple, perfect moments that made up happiness. He stopped at a stop sign, perhaps not for the full 3 seconds, and turned onto his street. And just then, red and blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror. David's heart skipped a beat. He never liked dealing with the police, but he had done nothing wrong. He slowly pulled over to the curb and lowered his window. A tall, well-built officer approached the car. His name tag read Kaczmarek. "Good evening, sir. Do you know why I pulled you over?" The officer's voice was flat, emotionless. "I have no idea, officer," David replied. "You didn't come to a complete stop at the stop sign. License and registration, please." David reached for the glove compartment. He could feel the girls tense up in the back seat. He handed the documents to the officer. The officer studied them for a long time in the beam of his flashlight, even though the streetlights illuminated everything quite well. "Mr. Chen, you're a chemistry teacher at Northwood, right?" the officer asked, and a new, strange note entered his voice. "Yes, that's right." "Stay in the car," Kaczmarek tossed out and walked back to his patrol car. Several minutes passed. The girls fell silent. "Dad, what's happening?" Maya whispered. "Nothing, honey. Just a check," David reassured her, though he himself was starting to feel uneasy. Officer Kaczmarek returned, and his partner was with him. He shone his flashlight into the car's interior, its beam sweeping over Maya's face, then Chloe's, who flinched under his gaze. "Sir, I smell marijuana coming from your vehicle," Kaczmarek declared. David was stunned. "That's impossible. No one has ever smoked in this car." "The smell gives me probable cause for a search. Please step out of the vehicle, you ladies too." David got out, his hands trembling slightly with indignation. He saw his daughter and her friend get out of the car, their faces pale. One officer began to methodically search the car's interior, while Kaczmarek ordered the girls to put their backpacks on the hood. Maya obediently placed hers down. Chloe hesitated. "Come on, let's go, don't drag it out," Kaczmarek hurried her. Chloe slowly took off her backpack and placed it on the hood. The officer opened it, and inside, among the textbooks and notebooks, lay a large, vacuum-sealed bag packed with a crystalline substance. David Chen's world ceased to obey any rules. Time slowed down. He saw the shock on his daughter's face. He saw the mortal terror on Chloe's face. He saw the triumph in Officer Kaczmarek's eyes. Well, what do we have here?" the officer said, holding up the bag. "Looks like the high school chemistry teacher has some extracurricular activities." "That's not mine," David exclaimed. "I've never seen it before in my life." Sure, Kaczmarek smirked. He looked at Chloe, who was trembling like a leaf. "Is this yours, sweetheart?" Chloe was silent, her eyes fixed on the ground. She couldn't speak. "That's what I thought," Kaczmarek said. He stepped towards David. "Mr. Chen, you're under arrest on suspicion of possession of narcotics with intent to distribute." Handcuffs snapped onto his wrists. He saw his daughter burst into tears. He saw Chloe remain silent. That silence was louder than any scream, and it condemned him. In the interrogation room, under the glare of a merciless lamp, they laid out the charges before him. Drug trafficking in a large quantity, involving minors. A whole bouquet of charges, each of which could cost him decades of his life. "Your little friend has already started talking," a detective with a tired face told him. "She says the backpack is yours. that you asked her to hold it for you. It will be better for you if you start cooperating." It was a lie, but David didn't know that. He only knew that his orderly world had been destroyed and he was falling into an abyss. Bail was set at $500,000, an amount that was tantamount to a refusal. David sat in a prison uniform in a cell, sharing the space with men whose faces told stories of lives lived on the edge. The smell of despair was even thicker here than at the police station. His perp walk from the car to the courthouse, when he was filmed in shackles by local TV channels, went viral. His chemistry teacher busted with drugs. The headline was too good to pass up. His reputation, built over years, was destroyed overnight. His wife, Elena, hired a lawyer. Her name was Anya Sharma. She was a smart, energetic woman with a piercing gaze that seemed to see right through everything. They sat in a tiny meeting room, separated by thick glass. "The prosecutor, Mr. Thorne, thinks he has an ironclad case," Anya said, her voice calm but serious. "The drugs in your car. Your profession, they will argue you had the knowledge to manufacture. And they have Chloe's testimony. But I'm innocent." Chloe was silent. She was scared. "She never said the backpack was mine," David protested. "She is now," Anya replied quietly. "She made a deal. Testimony against you in exchange for dropping all charges against her. Her lawyer convinced her it was her only way out." David felt an icy grip squeeze his heart. The betrayal was complete. Prosecutor Thorne offered a deal: plead guilty to possession, and he would get 5 years instead of a possible 25. "It's a generous offer, Mr. Chen. Think of your family," Thorne said during one of the meetings, his face expressing false sympathy. "I will not confess to something I didn't do," David replied firmly. The trial was set. David's family was suffering. Elena had to mortgage their house to pay Anya Sharma's fees. Maya withdrew into herself, torn between love for her father and the betrayal of her best friend. She stopped going to school, unable to bear the whispers and sideways glances. At a pre-trial hearing, Prosecutor Thorne delivered another blow. "Your Honor, the prosecution intends to introduce Mr. Chen's employment records as evidence, as well as the chemistry curriculum and materials he taught. We will prove that the defendant had not only the means but also the expert knowledge to organize a criminal enterprise for the production and sale of methamphetamine." Anya objected, calling it an attempt to assassinate her client's character, but the judge seemed intrigued. "I will allow the prosecution to present these materials for consideration, Mr. Thorne. We'll see how relevant they are." That day, returning to his cell, David felt true despair for the first time. His passion, his calling, his knowledge, everything he was proud of, was now being turned into a weapon against him. His life was no longer an equation. It was an experiment gone horribly wrong. The trial began on a stuffy July day. In his opening statement, Prosecutor Thorne painted a picture of monstrous deception. He depicted David not as a respected teacher, but as a monster hiding in plain sight. A suburban Walter White, he called him, playing on popular cultural images. A man we trusted with our children used his position and his knowledge to poison them. Officer Kaczmarek was confident and convincing on the witness stand. He described the stop in detail, the obvious smell of marijuana, the nervous behavior of the girls. His testimony was full of minor inaccuracies and exaggerations that nevertheless formed a coherent picture of David's guilt. Anya Sharma managed to catch him in a few contradictions during cross-examination, but the jury seemed captivated by the image of the heroic cop who had exposed a drug lord. Then Chloe was called to the stand. She looked small and scared in a prim blouse that her mother had obviously chosen. She did not look at David. Thorne guided her through her testimony gently, paternally. "Chloe, tell the jury whose backpack the officer found." She was silent for a few seconds. The entire courtroom held its breath. "It was my backpack," she whispered. "But what was inside, Chloe? The substances, were they yours?" "No," her voice trembled. "Then whose were they? Who put them in your backpack?" Chloe finally looked up. She looked directly at David, and there were tears in her eyes. It was the look of a cornered animal, ready to do anything to save itself. "He asked me to hold it for him," she said loudly and clearly. "Mr. Chen, he said it was very important and that I shouldn't tell anyone." The courtroom gasped. David felt the ground give way beneath him. It was a lie, a brazen, monstrous lie, but it sounded convincing. He looked at the jury and saw condemnation in their eyes. The defense's part of the trial began. Anya Sharma was like a lioness. Her cross-examination of Chloe was ruthless but necessary. She forced Chloe to admit that her older brother, Derek, had already had trouble with the law over drugs. She showed printouts of phone calls. Derek had called Chloe 7 times in the hour before David picked her up. "What did you talk about with your brother, Chloe? Did he ask you to do something for him? Did he threaten you?" Anya pressed. Chloe began to get confused, her story falling apart. "I don't remember, I don't know," she repeated, bursting into tears. But the first impression of her direct lie was stronger. Alina, David's wife, testified, describing him as a loving husband and father dedicated to his work. But Thorne, in his brief rebuttal, dismissed her words as the natural attempt of a desperate woman to save her husband. It was David's turn. He decided to testify. He calmly and methodically, as if in a chemistry class, laid out his version of events. He spoke of his love for science, his responsibility to his students. He denied all the accusations. But Thorne's cross-examination was a masterpiece of cruelty. He bombarded David with questions about chemical formulas, synthesis processes, precursors. "You do know, Mr. Chen, that acetone, which can be bought in any hardware store, is used in the production of methamphetamine. You explained this in your classes, didn't you?" "I explained the chemical properties of acetone in the context of the curriculum," David defended himself. "But you know it. You have knowledge that is not available to the average person," Thorne concluded, turning to the jury. He had turned David's erudition into an indictment. The case seemed lost. But Anya didn't give up. She hired a private investigator who began digging into Derek, Chloe's brother. And he found something. On Derek's private social media account, the investigator discovered a conversation with his friends. 2 days before David's arrest, Derek had bragged about finding the perfect mule who won't suspect a thing, and that his little sister would have to help him, whether she likes it or not. This was the breakthrough. Anya filed an emergency motion to recall Chloe to the stand and present the new evidence. The judge, intrigued, took the papers to review them. Prosecutor Thorne protested furiously. The tension in the courtroom mounted. And at that moment, a woman on the jury, sitting in the front row, suddenly turned pale, her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed onto the floor. Panic erupted in the courtroom, bailiffs rushing to her. The judge banged his gavel frantically. 15 minutes later, after the woman had been taken away by an ambulance, he made his decision. "Due to an extraordinary event and the inability to continue the trial with the current jury, I declare a mistrial." The trial was nullified. It wasn't a victory. It was merely a postponement. A new battle was scheduled for 3 months later. During that time, the Chen family was completely ruined. Elena worked 3 jobs. The house was on the verge of foreclosure. David's reputation was destroyed, and the school had placed him on indefinite, unpaid leave. He was a broken man. But the delay also had its advantages. The story of the sudden halt to the high-profile case attracted media attention. Anya Sharma skillfully used this, giving interviews and hinting at evidence of her client's innocence and pressure on a witness. And one evening, Chloe and her mother came to Anya's office. The girl, tormented by guilt and freed from the influence of her brother, who had been arrested in a separate case, was ready to tell the truth. At the new trial, everything was different. Prosecutor Thorne was less confident. His star witness was now a witness for the defense. Chloe, weeping, told the whole truth on the stand, how her brother had forced her to carry the backpack, how he had threatened her, how she had lied about David out of fear. The verdict was swift and unanimous, not guilty. Applause erupted in the courtroom. Elena and Maya cried with relief. But David himself felt no joy, only a vast, all-consuming weariness. A few weeks later, he was reinstated at work. He walked into his old chemistry classroom. Everything was in its place, the charts on the walls, the flasks on the shelves. He went to the blackboard, where formulas from his last lesson still remained. He ran his hand over the chalk dust. The tools of his passion, his knowledge, had been turned into weapons against him. He looked out the window at the students laughing on the lawn. He was back with them, but a chasm of experience now separated him from their carefree world. He had won, but the system had left deep scars on his soul that would never heal. The equation of his life had been solved, but the answer had an infinite margin of error.